Hey there, bookkeepers. This is Racheal Cook, founder of the CEO Collective and host of the Promote Yourself to CEO podcast. And I'm so excited to join you during this summit and share some more about how strategic advisory services are one of my favorite ways for people to grow their businesses without adding a ton more clients, without adding more to your workload. So, to get us started, I want you to meet one of my dear clients, Sarah Young, who came to us in 2020. She had just left her corporate accounting career to go off on her own and start her own practice. She had a brand new baby at home. She was ready to create more freedom for herself and her family. But despite all of her hard work, her business just wasn't working. She was burning out. She was overworked. She was underpaid and just so exhausted. She wasn't sure what the next right step would be. And in the year that she worked with us, we really dug into this major problem that impacts so many small business owners, especially those who are service providers, is having too many clients at too low of a price point, essentially trapping us in this ceiling of how much revenue we can make because we've maxed ourselves out. Can you relate to that? Does that sound familiar? This is a really, really common problem. And in my 20 plus years of working with small business owners, it is one of the biggest issues that I find for so many incredible service providers who are doing great work, but without really re-examining how their business is structured, they find themselves in what I call entrepreneurial poverty, the entrepreneurial poverty of time, energy, and money. I am on a mission to end entrepreneurial poverty of time, energy, and money for especially women entrepreneurs. That's who I primarily work with, because I have seen so many women entrepreneurs leave their traditional corporate career wanting to start a business specifically so that they can have more freedom, so that they can have more flexibility, and so that they can have more financial success. But the research shows that despite that being the driving motivation behind women going out and starting businesses on their own, when we don't really structure our businesses in a way that supports us in having our life as a priority, it's so easy to find yourself maxed out, absolutely full slammed calendar where having too many clients is actually a problem. It's holding you back from achieving that freedom, that flexibility, and ultimately that financial success that you are looking for. So if that resonates, if you're going, okay, I think I'm going to enjoy this conversation, I want you to get excited because I am very practical and tactical. And I'm going to walk you through the main three levers that we go through in growing your business. Now, as we go through this, chances are you have already done one or two of these levers. It's the third one that could really transform your business, making it more sustainable, making it more scalable, and allowing you to prioritize your life first over your business. So let's talk through each of these levers that small business owners can use to grow their business. Now, the first is to increase the number of clients that you are working with. Clearly, if you take on more clients, you're going to make more revenue, right? Well, if we were to start crunching some numbers here and start looking at what that actually looks like, I did a little bit of digging. And here's what I found for someone who has a solo basic bookkeeping business. Let's say the average price point for a basic bookkeeping client is $300 to $500 per month. Well, if that's kind of the pricing range you are in, you have to also consider how many clients you can reasonably take care of as a solo bookkeeper, meaning you don't have other people who are supporting you doing the client work. There's going to be a cap, right? We only have so much time. We all have 24 hours in a day, 168 hours a week. So there's still a limit to how many clients you can reasonably serve. And at this price point, you will find that you start to hit a ceiling in your total revenue. So this becomes one of the first major problems that we run into with service-based businesses. At some point, you max out on capacity. You can't help any more clients working solo. And this is where the next lever comes into play. That's when we start to look at, okay, can we increase our price point? If we go across the board, look at all of our clients and go, okay, let's just incrementally increase our prices. Often we see this happens on an annual basis. We all adjust our prices as things just in general become more expensive. But I have literally talked to so many service providers who are terrified of increasing their price point, and they will avoid it at all costs. They will avoid it for years. I've, in fact, just had a conversation with one of my clients who specifically focuses on working with nonprofits, and it had been 7 years since she increased her prices, even though it was in all of her client contracts that prices would adjust on an annual basis. So this is a lever that can feel a little scary, right? Raising your prices. But again, there's a limit to how much you can raise your prices if you're only focused on bookkeeping. So in this example, I'm going from basic bookkeeping to more of a full service bookkeeping. This is a higher level of service that you could potentially be offering, where maybe now instead of just doing all of the categorization, managing accounts payable, receivable, bank reconciling, and basic financial reporting, now you're adding in things like payroll, adding in more detailed financial reporting. So now we've put ourselves in a position where we can charge a little bit higher for all of our clients. But still, if we are going in this direction, we're working with more clients and we're increasing our prices, we'll still find that there's a little bit of a ceiling on how much we can reasonably grow on our own. And this is where people start hiring people on their team, where you might hire additional bookkeepers to support that level of service. And this becomes kind of a double-edged sword, because as you start hiring more people, now you have to pay those people. It reduces your overall profit, and you've still got to pay yourself as the business owner. Additionally, one of the biggest challenges that comes up for my clients as they start growing out their team that is working directly with clients is it's so easy to underestimate the time and energy that it takes for us to manage a team. In fact, when I'm working with business owners who are growing from a solo owner-operated business to actually building out a team, we find that by the time you have 5 to 8 people on your team, you now are almost like a full-time manager. For you as the business owner, to continue growing, you have to continue getting support, meaning you might have to now have somebody else who oversees the team that is doing the work for your clients. So while you can grow in this way, it's a little bit trickier because your profit margins are really, really, really getting squeezed. And that's what we don't want to have happen, right? We don't want to find ourselves in a position where we're not only hitting the revenue ceiling, but we're now responsible for all of the additional expenses of trying to grow a team in order to grow our revenue, and the additional bandwidth, the additional capacity it takes for you to manage that team. So how do we increase your revenue without increasing your workload? This is the third lever, and it's a whole different way of looking at your business. This is where I love to help my clients come up with a premium offer. A premium offer that is not just simply increasing prices a little bit at a time, 10 or 20% at a time. Now we're looking at an entirely next level offer specifically for a segment of our client base. This is exactly what we helped Sarah to do with her business. She went from charging her clients $300 to $500 a month to do their bookkeeping and basic accounting, to offering now a $3,000 a month CFO level advisory service. So this is what I'm talking about when I am talking about a strategic advisory service. We're not just incrementally slowly raising our prices. We're looking at something that could be 5 to 10 times your current price point. But there's some things you need to keep in mind here, and we're going to walk through it together. If you're considering adding in a strategic advisory level of service into your business. The reason I love this is because the results are exponential, right? It means that instead of having to take on more clients, you're simply charging at such a premium price point that now you reduce the challenge of that revenue ceiling. You have a higher price point with fewer clients. And because you don't have to take on so many clients, you can often do this with a much smaller, leaner team, which means higher profits, which we all love. And honestly, because you don't have to have such a large team, you can have such an incredible lifestyle business where you just service a few really incredible clients at this higher price point. So we're going to get into how can you find those clients at that higher price point, what actually goes into it, because I want this to be practical, tactical. You can take this away and start thinking about how you can build this into your business. The truth is there are clients out there who want more support. This is a photo of some of my clients at one of our recent CEO retreats. And these are all women entrepreneurs in this transition where they are in high growth mode in their businesses. They are starting to build incredible teams and they want support. But you have to now recognize when is the right time to get in front of clients like this and how they need you to show up for them. The number one thing I hear from my clients is the reason that they don't get this level of service or say yes to this level of service is because a lot of small business owners specifically feel like in their financial world, as far as bookkeeping, CPA, et cetera, it's very reactive in general, right? There's not a lot that's helping them be more proactive in their business. But if they are wanting to get into growth mode, if you are working with small business owners who want to get into growth mode, they want to know that you're going to be a real strategic partner for them who's going to be proactive in helping them to make more money, to be more profitable, and to strategically look at their business and help them see more opportunities. And this is what I see for advisory level of services. This is not just waiting until the end of the month to review their transactions and provide financial reporting. This is where you're starting to look ahead and really strategically align yourself with these business owners. So who could you potentially be talking to? Think about your existing client base and think about businesses that you know who might fit these types of categories. This is usually when I see people looking for additional support when it comes to their finances. They're high growth. These are not the small businesses that are growing like 8%, 12% a year. Let's be honest. If you're growing 8 to 12% a year in your small business, you are basically just barely beating inflation. And it might be great for a lot of people who, again, only want a lifestyle business. But if we are looking at small businesses that are growing at 25%, 50% year over year, even 100% year over year, that's considered incredibly fast growth. And when you're growing that fast, the logistics of growing a small business that fast is there is a lot of money coming in, but there is a lot of money coming out. And a lot of small business owners need support in making decisions. They need support in managing all of those pieces. They need more help. And this is where you can provide additional value. Often I have clients who are starting to think about how they can increase the value of their business. And this is a huge one, especially if you're considering adding advisory services to your bookkeeping or financial business. There's so many small business owners who do not consider and plan to sell their business or exit their business in the future. In fact, this is a major thing that I'm fired up about because I see a lot of people who spend decades building small businesses and then they're ready to retire, but that business is not actually sellable. It's not positioned to sell. The finances are not in order. They haven't made the right investments. They don't have the right assets in place. that can really be detrimental to a small business owner who's hoping that that business is going to help now fund their retirement years. That's really important to know. Another variation of that could be people who want to pass their business on. Maybe they want a child to take it over, or they have a potential successor in mind, but they haven't structured their business to actually pay back that business owner for all of those years of their sweat equity. This is where having somebody who can advise them on the financials and help them make sure they're doing the right things can be invaluable. It can mean the difference in millions of dollars for these business owners when it comes time to sell, exit, or put in place some sort of succession planning. Businesses that are growing really quickly also are making big investments on a regular basis. They are looking at the first thing I always hear from clients who are actively growing their teams is now they're like, well, how do I know when I'm ready to hire the next person? Can I afford to hire the next person? How do I plan the money so that I can hire my team? How can I make sure I'm taking advantage of all the things that I can? Should I invest into this new, very expensive rebranding project? Should I completely overhaul my technology? These are big investments that are often tens of thousands of dollars, if not more. I mean, if we're talking about hiring people in their team, it's just incredibly expensive. And they need support in making those decisions. That means having a strategic partner who can help them look at the numbers, who can help them plan proactively, and help them manage all of those things. Advisory clients are looking for support when it comes to taxes. And while I know not every bookkeeper is ready to handle taxes, even helping them get everything prepared or collaborating and working closely with a strategic tax advisor or CPA can make such a massive difference for these small business owners. Most small business owners simply do not know all of the opportunities out there for them to reduce their overall tax burden. They also don't know all the opportunities out there for them to pay themselves and build their own wealth. This is an area where you can lean into that in advisory services, or you could just be the strategic partner who works collaboratively with those experts. And another big thing is simply helping them optimize cash flow and forecast accordingly. 82% of small businesses struggle with cash flow. And the biggest reason they struggle with cash flow is because they don't have a forecast. They don't know what's coming in the future months. They don't know when clients are dropping off. They don't know when invoices are set to hit. They don't know when certain things are happening. And because of that, they're kind of flying blind when it comes to making decisions about their business. All of these are incredibly important things that you need to consider and that you can provide a ton of value for small business owners. So let's look at some of the different ways you can create an advisory level of service. You don't have to include all of these different ideas that I'm going to give you. Maybe there's one or two that really resonate with you. That can be enough to build an incredible advisory service offer. But I'm going to give you actually 10 different ways you can add value. You can mix and match these to make the most sense for you, your preferences, your expertise. The first is financial analysis and planning. Financial analysis and planning is huge. Again, so many small business owners, by the time they get their financial reports, the time is gone, right? That we are now looking at a report that is reflecting something in the past, but it is not really helping me plan ahead for the future. Most small businesses don't actually have a real budget. They're kind of doing bank balance budgeting, where they're looking at their business accounts and going, okay, I have money there. I can invest in this thing, or I can purchase this thing. That's not the smartest and most strategic way to handle their money. So being able to help them develop a real budget is so invaluable. How much should they be spending on their marketing? What ROI should that marketing have? And how is that reflected in sales? How much should they be spending on their overhead? Helping them come up with a budget that makes the most sense for where they are in their business and make decisions based on their forecast and their projections will help them to make smarter decisions and really reduce the very, very costly errors of bank balance accounting. You can help them look at their cash flow. Like I said, cash flow is a really big one. 82% of small businesses really struggle with cash flow, and they find themselves in that feast or famine cycle at some point. And this can start to feel like, they are, what is the phrase? Stealing from Peter to pay Paul. They are not having enough cash in hand to meet their current obligations. And where that can become really, really tricky is most small businesses simply do not have the reserves to weather a big storm. And I've seen this over and over again. A lot of small businesses have so little in their reserves because they don't know how much they should have in their reserves, that having a client that drops off, if they had one of their biggest clients leave them, one of their biggest contracts pulls out, suddenly they're wondering, how am I going to pay my obligations? How am I going to pay my team? They're not set up to be able to weather those storms. And that is just a part of business. So helping people not just with cash flow management so they can pay everything that's due this week, this month, but helping them start to build those reserves so that they can weather any storm is incredibly valuable, especially as their expenses get bigger, their contracts get bigger, they need more support. Helping people with profitability analysis. Now, this is going to vary wildly from business to business, but I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with clients and look over their pricing for their different offers and realize they might have clients on the books that are actually not profitable at all because of the expenses associated with delivering that product, program, or service. So helping your clients identify what are their most profitable revenue streams, what revenue streams, what products, programs, and services aren't very profitable, helping them benchmark that a little bit can be a game changer. It can help them to avoid saying yes to clients or to projects that are not going to serve them long term, and help them see where they do need to be focusing their time, energy, and attention. So this is a really, really big one. If you have small businesses that are trying to really be more proactive around their business, just offering this is a major value that you can provide to them. The next level onto this is a little bit more on the business strategy and planning side. So, depending on your own experience and expertise, you could be an incredible strategic planning partner. So, let's say you have clients who are coming into you and you're having conversation about where they want to take their business. You can actually sit down and help them figure out, okay, you're telling me you want to double or triple or 10x your business over this timeline. Let's look at, how is that going to happen? What does that need to look like? What are the expenses going to be for you to get there? You can actually help them crunch the numbers so they're not just doing like pie in the sky dreaming. They're actually getting very grounded about what needs to happen in order to achieve those goals. And again, this is an area a lot of small business owners struggle with. They tend to be very, very visionary, but they don't often remember that just growing revenue, there's also associated expenses that will impact that. There's also going to be associated taxes that will impact that. There's a lot that will happen that they might not be thinking of because they're not as strong in understanding their financials. So offering strategic planning, helping them break down their growth strategy and make sure they have clear budgets and they understand what their benchmarks need to be. That is a huge, huge service to those clients, especially the ones who are in high growth mode. I also love helping people with exit and succession planning. It's a huge area of opportunity, a massive area of opportunity. There are so many small businesses right now that will simply just close, and the only sale they will make of their small business is going to be of like equipment because they have not properly done exit or succession planning. They don't have the things they need for their business to be valued in a way where they're going to get a big payoff selling their business. So simply learning more, getting yourself some training and becoming someone who specializes in this. Doing exit and succession planning is a 3 to 5 year process for most small business owners. It's not like you can just wake up one day and decide to sell your business. It takes time to not only get the financials in order and to make sure your profits are looking good, but you also have to often make sure that you have the right legal things in place, make sure that you have the right standard operating procedures in place, that someone else can literally step into your business and run it. that's a lot of work. And a lot of people don't understand that. And a lot of small business owners are thinking of it, but they need someone to guide them through the how and help them really prepare so they can make the most out of their business exit. Performance measurement and improvement is another area that is just so incredibly invaluable. And I find that this is something a lot of people don't know what to do with, especially when it comes to their finances. Now, I'm a marketing nerd. I love marketing and sales. So I know for sure my key metrics, my KPIs when it comes to my marketing, when it comes to my sales. But when it comes to financials, it's very specific to different industries. It's very specific to different business models. And this is something where you really have to dig in and understand the numbers for those specific businesses. But if you can help somebody create these benchmarks, if you can help them figure out what their KPIs are for their finances, and then help them reverse engineer that into how it actually becomes something they use internally to improve internally in their business, it will yield such incredible growth for people. It will help make sure they're paying attention to the right things instead of the vanity metrics. It'll help them make sure they're paying attention to the right things. And it'll also help them run their team more efficiently. I think this is a really, really huge asset, a huge value to offer, especially for those high growth entrepreneurs. Risk management. Now, this one is a little different. And again, this depends on your experience, your expertise. This is something you could definitely collaborate with someone else. But there's a lot of small businesses that do need to have a level of risk management. They need to make sure that they are protected, that they've protected themselves, they protected their team. And this could be a combination of financial things that you're putting in place to make sure we're preventing fraud, to make sure we're compliant with anything that's essential in their industry. But this, again, could be something where you're collaborating with legal and insurance to provide the highest level of service. Not all industries is this going to be as crucial, but there's definitely a lot of industries where it is, especially I see in the healthcare spaces. Anything where there's legal compliance in place, they need to have the financial side of that really have a critical view of their business to make sure that they don't get caught in a tough situation. Tax planning and optimization is another huge one that you will hear from a lot of small business owners. You won't necessarily hear it early on in their businesses, right? If they're a smaller business, a newer business, this might not be the top priority for them yet, because when they're newer and smaller, they're usually just trying to bring in enough revenue to pay themselves and then to start growing. But once they do get to the point where they're paying themselves six figures or more take home a year, people need to start thinking about tax planning. They need to start thinking about their tax strategy, make sure their business is set up and structured correctly, make sure that they have optimized any potential tax strategy that will minimize their taxes. And there should also be some tax scenarios run for those clients so that they can see not just what they need to do this year, but looking ahead. Like, this is, again, the long-term proactive view. You don't just want to be looking ahead for what their taxes will look like this year. You want to potentially be talking to them about, what do you see your business looking like in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, and helping them start to think about, okay, right now might not be the best time to put this in place, but maybe by 3 years, we want to make sure we have all these different retirement accounts in place for your business. Or maybe by 5 years, we want to make sure we have put this specific thing in place so that you're really optimizing. If you're planning to grow at this level, we want to have a plan for what we're going to do to make sure you're not overpaying in your taxes and you're actually able to build the wealth you want to build. This leads us to advising on financing and investment. Again, this might not be applicable to absolutely everybody, but I know in my world, in the small businesses that I work with, working with women small business owners, the vast majority of women business owners are more likely to bootstrap their entire business and take on personal debt in order to grow their business, instead of going out there and looking for things like lines of credit or going to a bank and getting a bank loan or an SBA loan. There's a lot of fear around that because it's confusing and overwhelming. So helping people to understand what they could potentially do here. One, to minimize how much they're personally taking on, but also to look at the different ways they can fund the growth of their business. Growing a business is just so incredibly expensive. And simply being the person who does the research and presents options that make sense based on what's actually happening in their business, that is so incredibly valuable. You could also be looking at, especially as people start to grow, they might be looking at, should I be using debt or equity? Should I take on a partner? Should I have an investor? What should that look like? If you're interested in that side of it, especially for these high growth businesses, it's such a valuable thing for those business owners to have somebody who can be kind of like that neutral third party to look at everything and give them some insight into what might be the right next step. The same thing with making big investments. This is especially true if you have small businesses you're working with that have a lot of high overhead, or they're having to make big investments in, let's say, expanding their locations. I've had several businesses that have outgrown their initial location, and each time they have to go into a new location, it's a new cost to build out that location, to furnish that location, to fill that location with clients. So it's very, very expensive, and they need insight into, how am I going to manage those big investments into my business? How am I going to handle those big expenditures going out? And how quickly do I need to bring in the revenue to pay for those things? The worst thing that can happen for so many small business owners is they just start investing and signing on dotted lines, and they haven't taken out the right loan with the right terms that's actually manageable for them. So being, again, that neutral party who can help them look at these options and actually understand their existing business situation to make the best decision, I think is so incredibly valuable for those businesses that are looking into big growth. Customized reporting and dashboards. Again, this is something that is incredibly important, and not every business needs this. I think you really have to know your niche and your industry and think about the type of businesses that need this the most. But there are times where it can be very, very valuable to have more advanced reporting, especially if people aren't tracking things like, what are the expenses for this specific client, or what are the expenses and profit for this specific product, program, and service. Being able to dig in that and look at it at a like line item for each individual source of revenue can be so incredibly valuable. Being able to look at overall trends, both in the business and in the industry, can be incredibly important, because trends are changing all the time. And sometimes we can see trends in one industry that hasn't hit another. If you can start to see the trends and be able to understand and connect the dots between how this happening in the economy, or this happening in the world, or this happening in banking, or this happening in XYZ could potentially impact your small business clients, just being able to say, hey, this is on the horizon, we want to take advantage of this, or we want to watch out for this, again, helps to make better decisions. This is being a strategic partner for them. And finally, real-time financial dashboards. Again, this is dependent on your type of client, but there are some who really would love having the ability to look at, in one place, a view of what's happening in their business. And there's a lot of technology available these days that can make this a lot easier without it being all something you have to manually do. This is definitely where you'd probably want to lean into a little bit more of the tech that is available out there. It might be more expensive for you to get access to that tech and to get, fully integrated into that tech. But once it's available, it's so valuable to your clients that it's just a valuable thing to offer to them. Then we can look at tech and systems advisory. So again, this is something that I see as a big opportunity. A lot of financial services for small business owners are still being done very manually. And there is a lot of opportunity to automate or to systematize a lot of the work that you're doing for your clients, and that can help them run the day-to-day of their business, but can also just make it easier for you to run. So this is an opportunity. Again, it depends on a business to business level, but there might be things there that you can offer to your clients that will kind of bring them into the modern world and help them streamline things so they're getting the most accurate, up-to-date information, but it's not all having to be manually done. Human resources is a place I see a lot of small businesses needing a lot more help. And again, like I said earlier, the biggest challenge for so many small business owners is hiring, is simply understanding, when do I hire? How much do I need to have on hand before I hire? How long should it take before this team member is now actually paying for themselves? What should I offer for compensation if I want to be competitive? What kind of benefits should I offer or should I not offer? Do these people on my team, should they be employees? Should they be contractors? What do I need to know about all of those different things? Being able to really look at all of those things within the context of their finances is so incredibly valuable. This might be something you personally are interested in or have some background in. It could also be something, there are a lot of outsourced human resources, like fractional advisors who could help with this, and you could again collaborate with and bring them in. But if they're a high growth business that is going to have to grow and have a lot of people involved in growing that business, it's something that they will need support with. You don't want those clients to start hiring people without a really, really good understanding of salary benchmarking and bonus structures and employee benefits and hiring systems and succession planning and all of those different parts. It's a massive, massive need. And then the number 10 idea for you as far as how you could offer the next level of advisory services for your business is more client-specific advising. And this is something I really recommend to a lot of my clients, especially if you have been starting to build referrals in a specific niche, in a specific industry. This is where, because you see the behind the scenes of so many businesses in that world, you can start to really connect the dots for people. A lot of small business owners feel very isolated and they don't know what's happening in other businesses similar to theirs. So, for example, I have several different clients who've kind of niched into specific industries. I have one client who's offering CFO services who has really leaned into working with therapy practices that are group practices, meaning there's a lot of therapists working in one therapy practice. But because she now has so many clients that are these therapeutic group practices, she's not giving away insider secrets about any of these businesses. These businesses are not competing with each other, but she is able to see trends around what is working in these therapy practices, what is happening when it comes to hiring, what is happening when it comes to their expenses, etc. So that is incredibly valuable simply because numbers don't lie. And there's a lot of amazing business coaches out there. I am one. But when you have access to information like the financials of a lot of businesses in a similar niche, you're going to be able to have a better insight, line of sight on what is going on in that specific niche. And you're not guessing about it. You actually have some data to back up your thoughts. So I've seen people do this really niching into coaching and consulting businesses. I've seen people do this really niching into healthcare businesses. If you want to get into the healthcare businesses, there are so many that need help, that understand what they're dealing with, that understand insurance and understand, all of the nuance that goes on into that. And now when you niche down, it also becomes another way that you can really increase your value just because you have those specific insights. So how can you take all of this and get started? I know I just went through a lot. I'm already at like 39 minutes, but we're going to wrap it up now. And I'm going to walk you through how we coached Sarah through this in her year of shifting away from $300 to $500 services into $3,000 services. The first is start with your existing client base. Chances are there are people in your client base right now who would be ideal. So review your clients. This is something you should be doing on an annual basis already, but go through your client list and start thinking about who might meet this criteria. Who are the faster growth small business owners that I know are wanting to grow? They are wanting to grow at a pretty good clip. So again, not 10% a year, but we're talking about 25, 50%, 100% year over year. So they're going to be making a lot of expensive decisions here that could be very costly if they are mistakes. So look through your client base and see if you could identify people who you think would be a good fit for that. Then offer those specific clients a strategy review. You could do this as a paid strategy review or as a free strategy review, but the goal is to get on the same page with them and help them see that you want to go from being more of a reactive financial person on their team to more of a proactive partner, and ask them questions about what their goals are, where they want to be in the next year, 3 years, 5 years. What rate of growth are they going after? How do they envision that looking? And this becomes something that just by asking them these questions, you're really helping them see, the value in having a financial advisor on their team, somebody who can really show up and help them make even better decisions. As you slowly bring in those clients at this new level of service, then you just start asking for referrals. Small business owners talk to other small business owners. And if you start adding a higher level of service, they will start talking to each other. So don't feel bad or nervous or scared asking for referrals. Once you've started to do work with them and you've started offering these higher level services, it's such an easy next step to ask for referrals. Or one of my favorite things is to create referral opportunities. So I actually have several clients now, especially when they work with businesses who are in a similar niche or in a similar industry, where they will host like client roundtables. And these become almost informal masterminds where other small business owners who are very similar in what they're up against and what they're going through can join you and maybe have a conversation about how they are funding the next level of growth, have conversations about how they're looking at their tax strategy for the next year. Like just being the person who brings those people together and has valuable conversation. It's great for them, but also gives you a great opportunity to say, hey, bring another friend who might want to have this conversation. And then you do a strategy review with that person and invite them to work with you. So this doesn't have to be hard. It's just about being proactive. Another thing that I really love is building a referral network. So as I went through the 10 different ways you can offer advisor level services, there are some where maybe you might feel like you don't have that specific expertise. That's okay. You can get someone else to help you in providing that level of expertise. And this is one thing, again, I hear from small business owners over and over again. They feel like they're trying to find a lawyer, an accountant, a tax advisor, a bookkeeper. Like they're trying to find all of these different people to help them, but none of those people talk to each other. None of those people are on the same page or have the same view into their business. So helping your clients have go-to people who you know and you trust is another huge, huge value that you can provide. And it becomes a way where you could bring in an advisory level client, and let's say they decide they need some more tax planning. If that's not your area of expertise, you would basically contract your partner, your referral partner, to offering some of that, and you can work out the logistics of that, but still provide that higher level of service. Then when that tax expert has someone who needs this higher level advisory, they're already in your world. They're already working with you in some way. It makes sense for them to send them directly to you. So who do you need in your referral network? Think about taxes. Think about legal. Think about HR. Think about anything else that's really important within the context of the type of clients you work with. And another thing that I love talking about, and I know it's kind of at the end of this, but I do think it makes such an impact, is considering acquiring other businesses. Acquiring other businesses is a huge opportunity for so many small businesses, especially small businesses in this specific space. Why is it so huge? Over 75% of CPAs right now are getting ready to retire. We're coming up on a CPA crisis. There are CPAs, accounting firms, bookkeeping companies that are going to close, and those clients are going to have nowhere to go. This is one of the best ways to bring new clients into the fold. And that's literally Sarah's now purchased two accounting practices, two small accounting practices, but two accounting practices that they have rolled into her business and taken on all those clients, leveled up the clients that made sense to level up. And then the others, if it no longer makes sense to work with them, she helps them find a new home. One of the things that I love about the way Sarah has done this in her own business is by adding in the strategic advisory for the clients who were already in her database, who were already in her world. She was instantly able to start stabilizing her business, but also scaling her business. And she still offers basic bookkeeping up to full service bookkeeping, all the way up to strategic advisory. It just allows her to have a really, really profitable group at that strategic advisory level, while also being accessible to businesses who maybe aren't quite ready for that level of service, but they will grow into it as they grow their business. So if you're, again, coming at it from this very proactive view, then you can take the same number of clients that you currently have, right? So let's look at this example, the Successful Bookkeeper. Let's say it's $500 a month, 25 clients that you're working with on a monthly basis. That brings us to about $150,000 in annual revenue. So we could layer this in, knowing that a small percentage of our clients, using the 80-20 rule, a small number could be ready for a higher level service, not just a little bit higher price point, but a significantly higher price point. So in this example, I'm going to say we're taking, out of those 25 clients who are all at $500 a month, we're taking 20% of those, so 5 clients. And now those clients are going to pay us $1,500 a month. They're at a higher level of service, but it's the same number of clients. So this is how we can increase the revenue without massively increasing the workload. Is the workload going to increase because now you're offering a higher level of service? Yes, but it's not going to increase the workload in the way that taking on more and more and more clients. In order for you to have a 40% increase without raising your prices, you'd have to max out your clients, and you probably are not able to handle that level. So this was just a 3x on the price point, starting at $1,500 a month. If we took it all the way up to a 5x price point increase just for those 5 clients, now we've got a 100% increase in revenue with the same number of clients. And this is where things can get really, really exciting in a business like this. You can maintain those lower level clients. You can actually have your team come and start working with those lower level clients, but you can focus on bringing in more revenue simply by growing the clients you have and offering a higher level offer using one of those 10 things I mentioned, and help them really get to where they want to go. So if this was interesting to you and you want to know more about my process and the way that I support small business owners, I'd love you to come check out this series that I have created called the 90-Day CEO Sustainable Success Series. You can find the full 4-part series at theceocollective.com/success. And this is a 4-part series that I've put in place because, like I mentioned at the very beginning, I'm on a mission to end entrepreneurial poverty for women entrepreneurs. And I know that there's a lot of challenges that are not being talked about to those amazing business owners. So the first part of this series is all about the growth paradox. It's easy to believe that just focusing on more revenue will solve business problems. But the reality is, if all you focus on is growth at all costs, it can actually implode your business, creating more chaos and leaving the business owner feeling out of control. So in this installment, we talk through the research, the 9 tools that you want to put in place to reclaim control of your business so that you can grow with more sanity. Then we get into quiet scaling. This is a little bit about what I talked about today. It's all about understanding how you can use those different growth levers to work smarter. This is all about our framework that we use to help small business owners grow without adding more clients or more workload to their plate. We want to make sure if you want to double your business, you shouldn't have to double your workload. We want to make sure that you're doing it in a way that makes sense and allows you to prioritize your life. The third part is, what would CEO you do? As your business grows, you can't just be chief everything officer. You will become the bottleneck in your growth. So in this installment, we go through the top mindset shifts and CEO level habits that help you navigate the discomfort of your growth edge and help you become a stronger, more resilient, more confident CEO. And then finally, promote yourself to CEO. This is my favorite part of this 4-part series. It's all about, as you start to grow your business, as you really get to the point where you're ready to scale, where does your time go? Because now we've put a lot of systems, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of team in place. We want to make sure that you know where to prioritize your time, energy, and attention for more sustainable growth. So again, you can find that series at theceocollective.com/success. Thank you so much for letting me join you today. I really enjoyed getting to go through this with you and sharing some of my insights, working with a lot of different CPAs and bookkeepers and how we have adjusted their businesses. If you want to hear more from me, in addition to that free series, you can find my podcast, Promote Yourself to CEO. You can find me on Instagram, and you can also find me on TikTok. I would love to connect with you, and I'm super easy to reach out to on social media. So please, please, please reach out and let me know what your biggest insights and ahas were. Thanks so much for having me, and I hope I'll talk to you soon.